You're listening to RevOps Champions, a podcast created for B2B leaders to help you align your people, streamline your processes, trust your data, and leverage technology in order to grow your business.
It is not hard to go get it. You do not need to go back to school to do this. You don't need to become a data scientist. Like, the future of all of this is human language. If you have words and you have expertise, like, you can get value from these tools. That's how I kind of think about it. Like, I have no coding ability at all. And I have now built 5 GPTs that have like transformed my own life and are starting to transform our business and other businesses with zero programming. And that's the future, I think, is there for people. It's like, know what the tech is capable of, take your domain expertise and experience and instinct, and like work with these tools to create this future.
I think AI, there are companies today. One of our big mega trends is obviously AI, but I think somebody said this, which is AI is not going to take your jobs, but people who do AI will. And I feel that to be 100% true. We also were initially last year when our research, we're like, okay, oh yeah, AI, big deal. And let's big thinking around it. And then we realized that, oh my gosh, AI actually is not the new thing. AI in everything is the new thing. So that's the part where every product out there is going to have some level of AI around it. But there's a huge difference. And I think Yamini, the current CEO of HubSpot, and I chatted before her keynote around these areas, especially AI. And she was asking the same question based on our research. What are we finding? And I was sharing with her at that time that the difference that I'm recognizing is there are lots of people who started working on AI and saying, all right, it can create a lot of content, it can create a lot of stuff, and it just ended up being more garbage. And so you need the human in the loop to make sense of things and test different things and move things faster. So the classic and the best case scenario is when you kind of figure out, oh, this works when a person has tested, and now you're unleashing AI to just make it faster, better, not having errors and moving to. I think that's the part. People are reversing it. People are saying, oh, AI can do everything, so let me see what AI. That's not the way to go about it. The way to go about it is, I know how to get this thing done. Now let me find out if I can get it done faster, better, cheaper. Now that's a completely different ballgame. And that is going to happen.
I've mentioned the go-to-market ops side. We actually have a go-to-market ops framework that details out all of the components that our clients have from a process and data perspective. And we often will map their tech to that. So we can see for all of the core processes, what tech are they using? So they might have marketing automation, CRM, automation tools, data enrichment tools. They might have, experience tools like webinar tools. They might have conversion tools like a Chili Piper or website conversion. They're going to have, a dozen or a few dozen tools across this that we're going to map onto there. And then we're going to try and see, okay, with the way that you've set everything up, from the integrations and the processes within these tools, like, where are the issues? And often, there's a lot of issues that you can fix within their existing tech stack for them to feel like and actually experience better ROI from their tech stack, as opposed to ripping and replacing. Most of our clients, they have, and you touched on this, like, they have the core of their tech stack ready, so that they'll have Salesforce. Maybe some clients might not have marketing automation, so we'll be helping them implement Marketo or HubSpot. But a lot of the time they already have that. So, but then when we look at the core processes and we're trying to build out, the life cycle and how the data is going to be moving through and getting updated through the core tech stack, there's often the pieces that might be missing, like data enrichment. They're like, okay, well, now we're going to have territories and we want to be able to do scoring based on different segments. And it's like, well, do you have the data? And they're like, no, we don't have the data. So, okay, we're going to need to enrich this data somewhere to be able to get that. So you end up finding the gaps. But often, what happened over the last, particularly around like the early 2020s and maybe a couple of years before that, is every company went on a massive, buying spree of technology. We're kind of seeing it again now with AI tools. Interestingly, I thought every company learned their lesson during the crazy boom times. So there's so much opportunity to remove the shelfware, right? So as we're going through, we hear it all the time. It's like, okay, they're like, oh, someone bought 6 cents, but I don't even know who bought it, and we've got it and no one's using it, kind of thing. It's like, okay, are you going to renew this or are you not? Like, we can help you get the ROI out of this, but like, let's really figure out if you even have an ABM strategy to do it. So many companies, you've probably seen this, they put the tool before the strategy. It's like they didn't really know what they were going to do with it. They just wanted the tool. So then, once we've got a good understanding of the tech stack, all of the processes within the tools. We figured out how to just get, particularly from the core tech that you're probably not going to rip out, how to just get that working better. There is then the opportunity to then start pulling out and saving the client money because they've got a load of shelfware in there.
And I look at what you guys do is you're freeing them up mentally, right? And with time to do the big work. Typically would get bogged down in the things that you guys are automating and you guys are building out, right? So as we grow, we have to figure out those things that are kind of pulling us back to where we were before. And that's why tech is such an important thing. But at the same time, we can build the tech, and you guys see this, and not maximize its return as well. Because the tech isn't the success factor. The tech is awesome, but it's not what's going to make it successful. And I mean, I spent 13 years at Cargill in tech. I globally deployed systems, and that's where I first started to realize it had nothing to do with the tech. It had everything to do with the human energy moving in a different direction than it moved yesterday. And we have not prepared leaders, and that's hard. That's change and communication skills.
What a wonderful question. And sometimes the personal touch is incredibly important. Sometimes the personal touch is less important, and it's just much easier to turn to technology as a solution. So I think you're right. We have to understand what is the process, and then what's the right technology platform to help us automate this or streamline it or make it more efficient. And this is in every aspect of the business, from how we market to how we onboard to like let me give you one onboarding example. At what points does a new employee, when can they on their laptop at home watch a learning management system video of me talking about something, or one of our people, our education team talking about something as they work through all these courses? And at what juncture do they actually need to have a live human in front of them talking about that concept? Because there's this temptation that you could put it all in a learning management system, for example, and they would just, go home and literally interact with their computer, and that's how they would learn. So that example applies to, every facet of the business.
I think that the opportunity it presents is enormous. I'm not scared about it at all. I'm a total optimist about the role of AI in professional services and beyond. I think that it is going to create so much value and so much bandwidth that is taken up by special, like my brain is a fine instrument, and in 50% of my time it's not doing the thing it's absolutely uniquely capable of doing. If that 50% of that time could be replaced by AI, then how much am I capable of creating? How much are my team capable of creating if we take away all the rote tasks? And not just the rote. I mean, this is the thing about AI in 2024. It's performing tasks that are very advanced and high level, always with a human eye on it. Never make the mistake of just spray and pray. You got to really double check the work and make sure that it represents your brand. But I think for my firm, and I would encourage anybody in a professional services firm to take this tack. What is possible with AI that could never happen without it, and lean into that and spend your time thinking about that, and spend your time playing on these models and experimenting. And I am blown away daily by what's possible.
In summary, sort of, imagine how much more value you could add if
That's
you
right.
were leaning into AI. Yeah,
as
a professional services
and
firm.
I don't think I feel that a lot of services firms are a little afraid that their clients will perceive the value as lower if some of it is machine generated, if it's, large language model generated. And I would say they care about value and the most value, and I would say as a consumer or as a business owner that buys services, I feel the same. I don't care where the value comes. Give me the most value. The more valuable it is, the more valuable I perceive the partnership. The more valuable it is, the more valuable I am, the more what value I'm willing to place in terms of higher fees. If you can create more value with tools, why would I ever think it's better for you not to use the tool? Doesn't make any sense. It's not surprising to me that some firms are operating from a place of fear. It's a huge change so fast. It's like bringing a decade forward, in every month. But what a huge opportunity.
Our platform kind of instigates change in terms of helping our customers get the right processes to the right people so that you can scale the business. So, being able to visualize the resources that you need and the potential revenue and the margins of those projects, you need to have people doing, entering in projects into a CRM, like a HubSpot, that carries through into Parallax, brings in your time tracking information, and then you can look at your financials of your projects and then decide your resource plan accordingly. And so the revenue operations really different than us because we're selling, software as a service and our implementation services. They're basically selling professional services team members and the resources available to them. So they have to think in terms of maximizing those resources at the right time and be able to know when to hire the right person at the right time, looking at the margins of those projects and make sure that they're maximizing those. They're not over servicing or under servicing clients, making sure that they know when they, like I said, when they should hire. And then ultimately, you want to continue to increase your profit margins as well as your utilization, because that's where you can get more revenue through the company with the same amount of people until you actually have to hire or contract out. So the revenue operations aspect of a customer of ours flows through to all those processes, not just on the, on the selling side. Like ours is a little different, like I said. So that's my initial thought.
I was hoping you might have some playbook that would be super valuable, but it is challenging because RevOps ultimately comes out of the technology space. I think we all know that there's absolutely a value play in professional services. We're part of the quest of this podcast is how do we figure that out and help professional services teams figure out how they essentially use the alignment that comes from RevOps to power and help them scale their businesses.
I think one of the things that helps also is, even though a lot of companies find this challenging, is to begin to look at the commonalities across all your service deliveries and start to templatize those and say, okay, this project, I'm just going to make this up, a mid-sized web design project needs a project manager, a designer, and a developer for 3-4 weeks. And then you can kick off your resourcing according to that and then customize it depending on the customer activity. But if you have those pre-built templates, you can start to look at your pipeline and make some conclusions through the process, even though they're not going to be 100%, but it gives you a framework to start from. And I attended a Bureau Digital event where we were brainstorming around a lot of, how to templatize your services so that you can scale better, making everything custom from, the ground up.
Yeah, I think there's like different buckets of things that you need to have, or maybe even like a tripod. You have to have all three of these, right? So there's like the softer kind of cultural components, there's the systems and processes, and then there's the technology component. So you got to get all of those right. You can't just have kind of cultural buy-in, but no, tools or processes. And it can't just be process run. If you over-index on like one of those, it creates lots of issues. Like the thing we've experienced firsthand, and I'm guilty of this, is, technology will solve the problem. You kind of over-index on, the panacea, this is going to solve all problems. And software is amazing, and I know the software you guys is top notch too. It doesn't solve all the problems, right? You need the people to be able to use those. And there's trade-offs that need to happen there too. So I think that the teams that do the best here kind of get all three of those, right? It may be, good enough in all three versus like strengthen just one of those too, right? So they have leaders that are sharing a vision of where we're going. These are leaders who are soliciting feedback. I think the process you outlined of like change management is great, like starting with a pilot, getting feedback, starting small and creating kind of momentum that way versus kind of like, let's make this big change really, really quick. One of my favorite books is Essentialism, and a quote that I might have to get tattooed because I fall victim to this is consistency is better than intensity. It's greater than, right? So like change takes time, right? Big change takes time. So like the cultural component is big. And then, processes, there's things that kind of in processes are also kind of like the unspoken things too, like the cultural norms of communication and how work's done, how communication is shared, meetings. We've done a lot of work in experimentation with things in like the agile world. So like Scrum and, really heavy on process there, but that can bring a lot of freedom to help you move forward faster. And then technology, the thing is you really want to get that piece right because the cost, if you think about like getting all the way to that full adoption stage that you were talking about earlier, and then you're like, oh, you know what? We have the wrong software. We got to do this again. So you lose trust. You lose, the most important thing is you lose this opportunity cost, right? All the time that your team is lost. That's the real big cost. So really doing your due diligence. Is this the right solution? Is this future proof? Will this grow with us to that next stage? And so companies that scale faster, as a client like recently that we're bringing on, and they're fairly small, but they made a significant investment in HubSpot. And, they've laid some of that groundwork and that foundation, and they have super ambitious goals. And we know that infrastructure, it doesn't have to be pulled out and replaced, right? We can use that and kind of go to that next level. So that's a vital component too.
Like nowadays with our data, if you've got good data, you can really personalize all of this. So go to the person that you're talking to. And first and foremost, there's two different types of people we're talking with, right? So if you're running a partner agency, I think about your internal people. We have to solve for them too, because they also have goals, challenges, problems, right? They're scared as well. What is this going to do for my job? If I'm a marketer and now I can take one piece of content, upload it to this content remix, and now I get 50 pieces of content, what does that do for me? What am I going to spend my time on? So there's these fears there as well. So I think we have to solve internally for our teams. We then also have to solve for the greater organization. And I just literally, it's probably like a scene from a bad business movie. But I spoke at this conference last week, and then they have like a little, hangout afterwards. And I was just talking with some guy. I was like, so what are you up to, man? Like, what do you do? And he's telling me, oh, I run this, this marketing agency, and I'm just starting to step into this like CRO role. I'm like, oh, what's that like? Tell me more about that. And I was like, so like, what are the challenges for you? He's like, I'm trying to figure out how to bring in business and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, let me give you unsolicited advice, right? And this is like the go-to. I love this framework. I actually learned it at HubSpot, but it's just the sales process, right? It's very simple. It's this acronym, and it starts with, what are your goals as an organization? What are the challenges you have in reaching those goals? And what plans do you have for absolving yourself of those challenges in service of those goals? And even when people start to answer those questions, if they don't have an answer, you've already been valuable to them, right? Because if they don't have documented goals that are time bound, and whether they're SMART goals or whatever, immediately they're like, ooh, I don't have this documented. That's a red flag, right? And if you're not aware of what are the challenges in reaching your goal, if you haven't named them, I think you and I talked about like EOS, right? Are you like, right? So right. So folks listening, if you're like, don't know what EOS, it's the Entrepreneurial Operating System. It's this great framework and model for running your business. And one of the greatest things I feel about it is, among others, is this idea of like an issues list, right? You keep a long running list of issues you have within your company. And that could be challenges. It could be, innovations and ideas. It could be interpersonal problems. Like, hey, I didn't like the way, so-and-so said this, whatever. If we don't name our challenges, if we don't name our issues, they do two things. They eat away at us. They eat away at our minds, and they eat away at our hearts. And so if we don't do this for our business, we don't know what problems we're trying to solve, right? All we're trying to do is make money. That's all they're trying to do. Versus, how do we think about strategic growth? How do we expand into new markets? How do we find more people that need our help that don't know they need our help? So I think like the short part of that long-winded answer is, find the people internally that you're solving for, and then find people at the organizational level and figure out what are their goals, their challenges, and their plans to absolve themselves of challenges, and figure out where the help can be. 9 times out of 10, there's going to be some level of new technology or software or process improvement that we can use to change that. And I think that when we think about the data piece of it, Brendan, is we often say companies are data rich, but insight poor, right? If we could have all this data, and then we have a question we're trying to answer, we have a problem we're trying to solve, we've got an issue that we've identified, the data points will start to reveal themselves to where we can actually put some numbers, some objective numbers to this subjective challenge that we're having. So I think that's a big thing to think about, is name it, own it, talk about it, so you can help the people internally and at the organization level.
Truthfully, I don't know how you are in today's age. I don't know how you're a great sales leader unless you have a great CRM too. So I think it really does matter for them, and that they see the importance of having a very strong CRM, not only to manage their business, but to manage their team, because you can really, really look at an individual level, their activities, their output, where they, the time that they're taking on different activities. And to be able to have those moments, that data really informs how you can coach your team. And you will have a much more high performing team if you have that data in that system.
And then I guess if we sort of take that thread a little, when we're implementing a CRM, or a company's implementing a CRM, what we've seen that the implementation always needs to be done focused primarily on the people who are going to be using it most, right? Every single day, which the pure CRM from a sales perspective, clearly it's going to be salespeople are going to be the front runners there. And again, the sales leader understands whether they have a sales team of 10 or 50 or 100, doesn't really matter. But what they want their salespeople to be doing is working on the activities that are the highest value as much of the time as possible.
Which is usually talking to customers and not entering data in CRM, right?
Correct. Correct.
So I see it as part of a great change management effort, a great digital transformation, any sort of CRM implementation. If you're working with the sales team, one of the top things you need to be thinking about is, are you reducing the number of clicks that seller has to make in any given system? Reducing the time that they have to spend entering that data. Because we know for the business, we need that data. We rely on that. Gosh, I can't manage our business. I can't manage our forecast without that. It is so important. But there's a couple things that are very important then as you're designing that system to ensure that those sales members will actually want to use it. Number one, fewest clicks as possible. I will say that over and over again until I'm blue in the face. As fewest clicks as possible. That really stands for any role